very often I'm preoccupied with alcohol. We have a crazy world. Nothing's crazier about addiction, although many people in the addiction field focus on drugs, than the fact that in America, and currently more so than ever, you're only allowed to say bad things about alcohol. Except, as I know, people who drink alcohol live longer than people who don't drink alcohol, and they remain cognitively intact longer, which is so crazy that we have a public health thing that discourages all drinking. But an even more fundamental contradiction is we've got a public health establishment that says only negative things about alcohol, and yet so many people enjoy drinking. It's sort of like, it's almost like going back to the whole God and Christianity thing. You know, all those things you like, they're sins.
Yeah, right.
And alcohol is sort of one of them, starting from the beginning. So I'm going to start at the end and then go back to the beginning. The New York Times had an article, and I'll tell you what the title of the article is, and maybe I'll ask you unfairly to free associate. The headline in the article is, "Pushing Alcohol While Health Experts Say Risk-Free Drinking is a Myth." New alcohol guidelines say that not drinking is the only way to cut risk, but government-owned stores aggressively promote liquor, beer, and wine. This is from Canada. Can you guess what they're talking about based on that headline alone?
Things are sort of socialized.
And it's that way.
So they're making a, yeah.
Go on.
So is that all you mean, is that they're making a contradiction? This stuff will kill you. Come get it, $5 a pop.
And the headline is saying, not only are they selling it, I grew up in Philadelphia. They used to have these state stores.
Yeah.
I would go with my father, who drank. It was sort of like going to visit prison visitation day. There was a blank wall. You went up to a guy and you said, "I want a bottle of, whiskey." It was totally non-consumer oriented. Somewhere along the line, Pennsylvania thought, a lot of people buy alcohol. We should and that was called a state liquor store. Let's make the state liquor store, a little more pleasant. And let's put it in downtown Philadelphia. Reputable people with a lot of money want to buy a bottle of vodka to make cocktails, as well as wine, of course, and beer. Wine and beer were in a slightly separate category. And so Philadelphia still has state-controlled liquor, but the stores look like regular old liquor stores now. And they're trying to sell liquor because people want to buy it, and they get the money for the state. And there are countries like that. Sweden is one, very anti-alcohol country previously, but they have a state alcohol monopoly. And in Canada, they have the state-controlled alcohol, and they're trying to sell alcohol. So think about it. The public health people have said there's no level of drinking that's okay. Oh, here are state stores, and on Christmas, they say, "Oh, don't you want to buy an extra bottle of booze for your family?" Does that show that our society's psychotic about alcohol, and drugs, and addiction?
All sorts of psychotic, yeah. Because the fact is, at the same time, didn't we just quote Heart and Stroke Canada, explaining in some detail that drinking moderately, they're talking about 3 drinks a day, help with all sorts of heart conditions that are associated with longevity. And it seems to be that when people have heart conditions, the benefit is even more.
I read the Harvard Health Net newsletter. It says something sneaky like, Well, alcohol can even be good for you. And you're sort of not allowed to say that. They had to bury it. And it's by the Harvard Medical School. You're sort of thinking, they know a thing or two, don't they? So in the very same edition of the New York Times that published this article, which is saying, can you believe the hypocrisy of Canada? It's sort of like if Canada sort of set up state whorehouses, or brothels. Right. It's against the law to do prostitution. They're in the same religious category. And in the same, so this article appeared in the New York Times, then it disappeared because the New York Times website, if nobody looks at an article, it disappears. Here were three of the most popular articles on the same day as the New York Times published this hypocrisy. Does that look like heaven on earth? That looks like, I don't know if you know the Sistine Chapel. It looks like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. So that was a picture that led an article in the New York Times. Do you happen to know, or could you guess what that's a picture of?
Is that New Zealand or Ireland or something like that?
New Zealand.
It is New Zealand. Okay.
And I'll tell you, this is the headline. I'm only reading headlines. You know how Law and Order is ripped from the headlines? I'm only reading headlines. This headline is, in New Zealand, Sauvignon wishes and sashimi dreams. A road trip on the country's South Island offered perfect wines, stunning views, intimate restaurants, and a chance to make a pilgrimage to a salmon Shangri-La. And the caption under that picture that we showed is this: Marlborough is New Zealand's most important wine region and a good start for a road trip through the country's South Island. So you've just read how Canada is duping its people by saying, oh, why don't you buy some alcohol for Christmas? And then there's that picture in that headline. What's your reaction to seeing that picture in the headline? My reaction is, I've been to Australia several times. Jesus, I really need to go to New Zealand and drink some wine. I don't know if he was with his wife or partner. He's driving around. They have beaches. They have roadhouses with great food and great salmon. And they have local Sauvignon Blanc, which is a white wine. And so you're reading New York Times about how bad it is that Canada is selling alcohol, and then you see this article. And then immediately, if you're stuck in an apartment in Brooklyn, you start fantasizing, oh man, how could I be there driving around having Sauvignon and really fresh salmon? They're asking a lot of human beings, aren't they? Now here's the second, all these are ripped from the headlines. Are you ready for this?
Ready.
Hilder Babes take Nantucket. Do you have any idea what that's about?
Hilder Babes.
There's a woman named Ellen Hilderbrand. And she writes, she's a complicated, she doesn't write romance novels. She writes about relationships, and they all take place in a famous island off the coast of Boston. And while she's there, she has set up a gathering of all of her women fans to come there. I mean, the waiting list is like hundreds of people long. She can only let on 60 or so women at a time for the summer. This month, hundreds of Ellen Hilderbrand's fans flocked to her freezing cold island to dance, shop, do yoga, and drink espresso martinis with their favorite author. Why? So again, I'm only reading from the headlines. and we're on Espresso
They're
Market.
they're a getaway. They have money. You said Nantucket, I think. Money, yeah.
Yeah. There are a bunch of upscale women who like this author. They think she has a lot of insights. They get together for a couple days on Nantucket's the name of the island. They do yoga. They discuss the books. They make friends. And then at night, they get a little tipsy and they dance. It's hard, I know it's heartwarming, isn't it?
I remember going to Nantucket to play music, and like
Oh, did
they
you?
treat you really well there when you play and put you up in these nice places. But you're on that island. You're either, and it's so obvious, you're either the hired help on the island, or you're a very rich person relaxing on the island. And I can imagine these women and what they might look like. Yeah.
So I'm just going to read the description. The greatest thing about this weekend is hour one, maybe it's about me. That's her, Ellen Hildebrand. But it goes way beyond me. It's about the island and the group of women, said Hildebrand. They come to shop, they come to drink, they're away from their kids and their husband and their job, and they're with their girlfriend, and it's full of fun having. They have joie de vivre. This is typical of my readers. I don't know, sounds damn good. I mean, I can't go. Sounds damn good, doesn't it? I mean,
Joie de vivre, love of life. Is that what that means?
yeah,
Joy of
joie de
life.
vivre, love of life. They go there, they make friends, they meet people who have similar interests, they do yoga, they're on a beautiful island. At night, they dance and they get tipsy. Obviously, it's way privileged people. If you can afford it, isn't that what life is about? So I'm already just reading the New York Times thinking, well, I'm not going to New Zealand. I'm obviously not going to Nantucket. Here's something I can do a little closer to. You ready? All of these are ripped from the same New York Times headlines. Here's the third headline. Samuel West takes comfort in D&D, Mendelssohn, and Ron Swanson's whiskey. Now, I actually know this actor from his work. The British actor appears in All Creatures Great and Small and Slow Horses. I've seen him. He's one of those British actors, kind of not demonstrative, you know what I mean? Kind of laid back. They use the word eccentric. He's got his own way of doing things. He's not overly emotional, but he's involved in life. Well, he's a famous actor. And this is what his life is about, for those of you who want to join it. In the first episode of the current season of All Creatures Great and Small, Siegfried Feynman wins a rat in a drinking contest. Don't ask me. Lagavulin, 16-year-old, I have about 15 different whiskeys up on a shelf. It takes quite a long time to get through because I don't drink quickly. But it's very warming and lovely in the winter. The darker, the peatier, the smokerier, the better. My favorite whiskey is probably Lagavulin, 16-year-old, which is a Scot that Nick Offerman's Ron Swanson drank on Parks and Recreation. So this is a guy who's interested in Mendelssohn. He's interested in literature. He's a well-known actor. And he really likes this whiskey. I mean,
Bastard.
he spends a night sipping a whiskey and saying, it's very smoky. And then there's one more thing he wrote about to compound it. He's got a family. Another of the great things he likes is the sleeper train to Penzance. I'm not even sure. Penzance, I think, is in Italy. The train leaves Paddington, that's in England, at 5 minutes to midnight. But if you have a sleeper, you can get on it at 10:30 p.m., check into your room, and go to the buffet car for a whiskey, crisp for the children. He's there with his children. And they get potato chips. and he has a whiskey before wandering back to your berth. You go to bed. In the morning, they knock on your door and bring you coffee and croissants or bacon rolls. If you're lucky, when you lift your curtain, you can see the sun rising behind St. Michael's Mount, and you get to Penzance at about 8:05. We just took our children, and they adored it.
Yeah, I like that idea, man. If traveling and you get a bed and a nightcap and wake up and they give you breakfast.
And
I
then
like the
you're in
imagery there.
Penzance.
Right.
So in the same issue of the New York Times, where they're saying, can you believe that Canadian government is saying good things about alcohol and selling it, when the public health is saying you shouldn't have any alcohol at all? Those are 3 headlines. The women getting together and dancing. The guy traveling around New Zealand, I know with his family or not. And then this deep English type guy, likes to spend the night at home reading a book, drinking a whiskey, and taking his kids to Penzance. Is there anything more psychotic? Is there anything more, God forgive me, Christian than this is something that people enjoy so deeply, alcohol. It's entwined with nature, with your family, with social get-togethers, all those women gathering together. Wine is grown in these beautiful countryside spots. And then they have a whole article saying, never, 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 never drink. Is that the deepest contradiction around addiction that we can ever have?
You just thumb your nose at all the people who can't handle alcohol and don't deserve to know that it can be okay while you write the article. And isn't this nice? Yeah, it is. It is psychotic. I like the way you put it.
It's like, why are they saying good things about alcohol, and then regular people who aren't being paid any money
Right.
to say good things about alcohol,
Right.
talk about how alcohol deeply affects their lives in a positive way?
Yeah.
And we're trying to sell people on the idea that drugs can be okay, but people have already discovered on their own that alcohol could be okay. So we're in an era where on the one hand, we're trying to say, drugs aren't always bad. You don't have to tell people that about alcohol. An awful lot of people know that. And we're trying to say, oh, but alcohol is all bad. I can only put this on PeelTube because I'm saying it's contradictory to all public health trends. At the same time that I'm just reading 3 articles, the headlines on the homepage of the New York Times.
That's nuts. So you don't even have to go on you're just showing their own hypocrisy. I got you back on the train of doing that. I was trying to show the other day that hypocrisy within one article, and you're saying, just look at open it up to section B and see, you just see that the stories reject the one claim. And that's just, you could do that on a loop forever.
Public health can't reject human experience. Getting back to addiction therapy and LPP, you don't go in and say to people, oh, your life is fucked up, you're doing everything wrong, that's why you're addicted. You get into your life and their person's life and help them twirl around how what they're doing or want to do or trying to do can sometimes be misleading, but they themselves and their purposes are valuable additions to the earth. And they just have to get all their bowling balls in a line.
Oh, beautifully put. I can't do better than that.
Au revoir, Zach.
Adios, Stanton.